What if your whole life was decided before you even got a say in it? Not your school, not your friends, not even where you sleep at night. Every single thing. Planned, controlled, watched. Most people will never have to think about that, but one person wakes up to that reality every single day. And that person is the son of the most powerful man in South Korea. Now, before you say it, yes, I already know what you're thinking. You're thinking this kid hasn't made. You're thinking money, power, fancy cars, and a life most people only dream about. I thought the same thing when I first started digging into this topic. But then I found out the truth, and it completely changed how I saw everything. Here is what nobody is telling you. The title sounds incredible. The reality is something else entirely. And by the time this video is over, you are going to see this life in a way that most people never get to. We are going to go inside the Blue House. We are going to walk through what a real day looks like. We are going to talk about his friends, his freedom, his future, and the pressure that sits on his shoulders every single morning when he wakes up. And here's the part that most people skip over, the part about his identity, who he is as a person when everything around him is about someone else. That part stopped me cold when I put it all together, and it is going to hit you the same way. Now stick with me all the way to the end because the last part of this video is the part that actually matters most. It is the part that connects his life to yours. And once you hear it, you will not look at your own life the same way again. Let's get into it. Let me ask you something honest. When you read the title of this video, what was the first word that came to your mind? Was it lucky? Because that is what most people think, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes completely destroying that idea. Here is the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Being the son of the Korean president is not a blessing. It is a life sentence with a nice address. Think about this for a second. You wake up in the morning and you cannot just walk outside. You cannot go grab food with your friends on a random Tuesday. You cannot post a photo online without someone, somewhere, turning it into a national headline. You cannot have a bad day in public. You cannot make a mistake without it becoming a story on the news. Every single thing you do is watched, not by one person, not by 10 people, by an entire country. Now, most people hear that and think, okay, but at least he has money. At least he lives in a big house. At least he never has to worry about bills or rent or any of that stuff. And yes, all of that is true. But here's what money cannot buy. Money cannot buy you the feeling of walking down a street and just being nobody. Money cannot buy you a friendship where you never have to wonder if that person actually likes you or just likes who your father is. Money cannot buy you the right to fail quietly, to mess up and have it just disappear. Every mistake this kid makes does not disappear. It follows him. It follows his family. It follows his father into meetings with world leaders. Let that sink in for a moment. There is something else that people completely miss when they think about this life, the security. And I do not mean security like a nice thing. I mean security like a wall that follows you into every single room of your life. Bodyguards at school, bodyguards at dinner, bodyguards outside the door when you're just trying to sit alone and think for 5 minutes. These are not people there to help you. These are people there to watch you. There's a big difference between those two things. And here's the part that really got me. He did not choose any of this. He was born into it. One day he did not exist, and the next day he was already living inside a system that had rules written for him before he could even talk. You and I complain about pressure all the time. Pressure from parents, pressure at school, pressure to figure out what we want to do with our lives. And that pressure is real. I am not dismissing it. But imagine that pressure multiplied by 52 million people. Imagine every single person in your country having an opinion about how you should act, what you should wear, who you should be. That is not privilege. That is a cage. A very clean, very expensive, very photographed cage, but a cage all the same. So the next time someone says this kid is lucky, I want you to remember this section, because luck has nothing to do with it. He was handed a life, not a choice, and those are two very different things. So now you know the truth about the luxury myth. But let me make this even more real for you. Let me walk you through an actual day in his life. Not the version you see in photos, not the cleaned up version they show on the news. The real version, the one that happens behind closed doors before the cameras turn on. The alarm goes off in the morning, and already his day is different from yours. Before he even gets out of bed, there is a schedule waiting for him. Not a schedule he made, a schedule that was made for him. Where he needs to be, what he needs to wear, how he needs to show up. It is all already decided. He gets ready and walks out of his room, and the moment he steps into that hallway, there are people there. There are always people there. Assistants, staff, security, people whose entire job is to be aware of exactly where he is at every second of the day. Think about your morning for a second. You probably roll out of bed, maybe grab your phone, maybe eat something, and head out the door. Nobody's watching, nobody's tracking. You just move through your morning as a person. He does not get that. He has never had that. Now he heads to school, and this is where it gets really interesting. He does not just show up to school the way you do. Before he arrives, the route has already been checked. The people around him have already been looked at. There are people in that building whose job it is to make sure nothing goes wrong before he even walks through the front door. And then he sits in class, just like any other student, trying to focus on whatever the teacher is saying, trying to take notes, trying to just be a normal kid for a few hours. But everyone in that room knows who he is. Every single person, and that changes everything. The way people talk to him, the way people do not talk to him, the way some kids want to be close to him for the wrong reasons, and other kids stay away from him for reasons that have nothing to do with who he actually is. He is surrounded by people all day, and he is completely alone at the same time. After school does not look like after school for you either. There is no just hanging out. There is no spontaneous trip to get food or walking around the city with no plan. Every movement outside of that building has to be approved, has to be planned, has to be secured. So what does free time actually look like? It looks like being inside. It looks like a very large, very guarded version of being stuck at home. The blue house is enormous. It is beautiful, and it is still 4 walls at the end of the day. Then comes the evening. And this is the part that I think people never stop to consider. He sits down for dinner with his family, and across the table from him is the president of South Korea. Not just his dad, the president. A man who has spent his entire day dealing with economic policy, national security, international relations, and the weight of running an entire country. What do you even talk about at that dinner table? How was your day? My day was fine, Dad. How was yours? Just running a nation of 52 million people. Totally normal stuff. There is a version of that dinner that sounds exciting, and there is the real version, where a father comes home exhausted and carrying things he can't even talk about, and a son sits there trying to just connect with a parent who belongs to an entire country before he belongs to his family. And then the day ends. He goes back to his room. The schedule for tomorrow is already being prepared. The security sweep of the building happens again. The staff moves quietly through the halls. And he lies there in the dark, in one of the most famous houses in all of Asia, completely alone with his thoughts. That is a day in his life. Not a highlight reel, not a photo opportunity. A real day. Every day, with no end date in sight. Let me ask you something. How do you know if someone actually likes you? Maybe they laugh at your jokes. Maybe they show up when things get hard. Maybe they just treat you like a normal person. Now imagine you could never be sure of any of that, ever. That's the reality of his social life. Every single person who comes close to him has been checked, vetted, approved. Before they even get a chance to have a real conversation with him, someone has already looked into who they are and decided if they are safe enough to be near him. So how do you build a real friendship inside of that? How do you ever trust that someone is there for you and not for what your last name can do for them? The honest answer is that most of the time you can't, and that creates a loneliness that no amount of money or status can fix. And dating? It's even more complicated than that. Imagine bringing someone you like into that world. Their background gets checked, their family gets looked at. A relationship that should just be two people figuring each other out suddenly has an entire security team involved. Most people would walk away before it even started. This is the part of his life that people never think about when they call him lucky. You can have everything and still have nobody who truly knows you. And for a young person still trying to figure out who they are, that's one of the heaviest things in the world to carry. Here is a question that nobody ever asks about this kid. Who is he when nobody is watching? Not the president's son, not the face in the newspaper, not the name people argue about online, just him. As a person, who is he? Most young people spend their teenage years figuring that out, trying different things, making mistakes, changing their mind about who they want to be. That is how you build an identity, through experience, through freedom, through getting things wrong. He does not get that process. His identity was handed to him the moment his father took office. Before he had a chance to choose anything for himself, the world had already decided what he was. And here's what makes that so heavy. Everything he does gets filtered through one question. Not, is this good for me, but is this good for the presidency? His choices, his image, his future, all of it measured against someone else's position. Think about how exhausting that is, to be young and still growing and have zero room to just figure yourself out without the entire country having an opinion about it. That is not a life. That is a performance every single day. And the scariest part? After doing it long enough, you stop knowing where the performance ends and where the real you begins. Here is the biggest misconception of all. People assume that being the son of the president means you have power, real power, like you can pick up a phone and make things happen, like doors just open for you everywhere you go. But here's the reality. He has zero political power, none. In fact, it is the complete opposite. He is deliberately kept away from anything that looks like influence, because one wrong move, one conversation, one business deal that looks even slightly suspicious, and it doesn't just hurt him, it brings down his father's entire presidency. So he carries the weight of that office every single day without any of the authority that comes with it. Think about that for a second. All of the pressure, all of the scrutiny, all of the responsibility of representing that position, but none of the ability to actually do anything with it. He is the son of the most powerful man in South Korea, and in many ways, he's completely powerless. That is the reality that nobody puts in the headline. Here is the question nobody thinks to ask. What happens when it's all over? One day, the presidency ends, and just like that, the cars are gone, the security is gone, the staff is gone. The entire structure that has been holding his life together since he was a kid just disappears overnight. And he's left standing there, trying to figure out how to be a normal person, something he's never actually been in his entire life. No training for it, no preparation, just suddenly ordinary. And the world does not let him be ordinary either, because now he has to build something for himself, a career, a life, and every single time he achieves something, people will ask the same question. Did he earn that, or did his last name open that door? That question will follow him forever, long after his father has left office, long after the Blue House is just a memory. He will spend the rest of his life proving that he is more than a title that he never even chose. That is the part of this story that nobody talks about, the after, the quiet, the starting over. Here's why I really made this video. Not to talk about one person, not to make you feel sorry for someone who lives in a famous house, but to show you something that connects directly to your own life. Because here's the truth. Most people are living under someone else's expectations right now. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your culture, maybe it's the version of yourself that everyone around you has already decided you're supposed to be. You did not choose those expectations, they were placed on you, and every single day you are either living inside them or quietly fighting against them. That is exactly what his life looks like, just with more cameras. The pressure you feel to perform, to meet a standard, to be something for someone else before you get to be something for yourself, that is universal. That crosses every border and every tax bracket. His life is just the most extreme version of something millions of people feel every single day. And the real question this video is asking is not what is his life like. The real question is this: are you living your life, or are you living someone else's idea of it? Think about that. So let me bring it all the way back to where we started. You thought this kid was lucky. I get it. I thought the same thing. But now you know the truth. The title is shiny. The life behind it is something completely different. No real friendships, no real freedom, no real identity. Just pressure, performance, and a cage that most people will never even see because it's built out of privilege. That is not luck. That is one of the loneliest lives on the planet. But here's the one thing I want you to walk away with today. Your life, with all its messiness and uncertainty and ordinary moments, has something his doesn't. Choice. Real choice. And that's worth more than any title, any house, any last name. Don't waste it. Now I want to hear from you. If you could ask the son of the Korean president just one question, just one, what would it be? Drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one. And if this video made you think differently about something today, then you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content I make every single week. I'll see you in the next one.